Members, we now move to the Trade Safeguard Measures Bill. When we were last considering the bill, the Honourable Phil Goff had the call and has 1 minute and 32 seconds remaining if he so wishes.
Mr Chairman.
The question is at part 1, stand part, the Honourable Phil Goff.
It's unfortunate, Mr Chairman, that a bill dealing with trade, which is the lifeblood of our country, is each time it's being debated is relegated to the latest hours of the evening. And one might ask whether that is a deliberate strategy of the government because of its embarrassment regarding the circumstances in which this bill has been debated and has been delayed. Just another embarrassment, as the member says. Actually, Mr Speaker, Labor supports this bill. It supports the new safeguard measures, which are designed to ensure that the trade is fair. It's consistent with the WTO rules and it promotes a more efficient decision-making process. This bill, Mr Speaker, was introduced in 2008 by Leanne Dalzell when she was Minister, and Labor supported it then. Of course, it was in government, and Labor supported it at the Select Committee. And the real question we've got to ask is why it took 5 years for this bill to come back to reach this stage of progress in the House. I can't think of almost any other bill on this order paper that's taken 5 years to progress. There were just 5 submissions. There was support for this bill. It had been well consulted. Why did the government hold up this bill? And that's the question that I'd expect the Minister of Commerce to direct himself to. Well, I have a couple of theories on why it's taken 5 years. And my first theory is this, that the bill for a period of years was in the hands of the Honourable John Banks. The Honourable John Banks. Now, the Honourable John Banks had some problems, and they were memory problems. You know, he couldn't remember the helicopter ride. He couldn't remember visiting one of the biggest mansions in the country. He'd forgotten all about the oversized German entrepreneur that he met there. Well, I'm trying to ask this question, Mr Chairman, and it's a valid question. It is, why has this been held up? And I'm asking the question, was it held up because the government feared that Mr Banks had memory lapses and his oversight of the bill was inadequate?
The member's time. The member must confine the comments in the committee stages to the content of the bill. Other things are erroneous. Jamie Lee Ross. Honourable Goff, is this a point of order?
No, I'm just...
No, I've called Jamie Lee Ross.
Question be now put.
The question is that the question be now put. Those are that... a point of order, Phil Goff. Honourable Phil Goff.
And this has just reached committee stages. We had less than 4 minutes on it the last session.
There's been 19 calls on this part, and this is you've already had 3 calls yourself. So the question is that the question be now put. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. Sue Moroney, sorry.
Mr.
Order.
Chair.
It was a point of order.
Mr. Chair, I understood that Mr. Goff was still partaking in his call when the other member switched the call and you thought it was a point of order.
Order. I stood because the member's time has expired because he had 1 minute, 30-odd seconds to speak. He's had 3 calls on this. The Honourable Phil Goff has had 3 calls. The next call went to the government member. The government member moved to closure. I'm putting the closure motion. Those in favour will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Members, we now move to part 2. We've got to put the question. First, we have the Minister's amendments that's set out on SOPs number 17 and 409. The question is that the Minister's amendments be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. Sorry? No, we're putting... No, we're on part 1. Members, order please. So we'll start again. We're putting the Minister's amendments as set out on SOPs number 17 and 409. The question is that the Minister's amendments be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that part 1 is amended. Stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Members, we now move to debate on clauses 26 to 31, and the question is at part 2, stand part. The Honourable Phil Goff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This part 2 deals with miscellaneous matters. It deals with the